prepping for the plain around door latch. So got it marked, which is 18 3/8 of an inch from the front of the door, which I've done on both doors. And then basically you want to center this shaft in it. So these are, you know, the width of it in total is 2 3/16. So you really need to make this from this center line 1 3/32 or somewhere around there. So that's it marked. Now I got to cut it out. You need to be careful you don't cut through the outer skin. So really I'm just going to cut it out, and then I'll probably sand it down from there. See how it goes. So the next step was to put this top bracket, so took it off the bottom, left the control mechanism in it, and clamp it down, and then drill out these holes. So on this one, I moved it up a little bit. There's a little bit on the bottom. Not sure if you can see that, but on this one, I don't think it'll be an issue, but I did cut it pretty close to the edge. So that's why I moved that one up probably about 1 millimeter, maybe a little more, just to give me a little room. But I haven't put the reinforcements in here yet. So that's something I'm gonna do. But for the moment, I just wanted to get these drilled. So that's all prepped. I'll clean that up a bit. And really I'm working on all the mechanisms. So I have the low profile door handle. So the next thing I'll do is drill that out in here. And that way, once I get all the drilling done, then I'll go back and do you know, a fill of the voids, if there are any. That way I just get it all done at once. I don't have to come back to it. And it's just a little cleaner, hopefully. So here we have it. It's countersunk. Cleaned it up a little bit, but basically ready for that, that center latch to go in here. And that's, you know, a little bit of cleanup here, some excess fiberglass and stuff, but everything is done. It's ready to go. Alrighty then. And so here was what we've got. I'm not sure how well this is going to come out, but I rounded the corners on this striker plate. That was something that I had to do to get a nice snug fit up here in front, which I think it's pretty good. I then proceeded to drill out the holes. These are number 12, you need to verify that, for these two top ones, and then number 30s for these. And I marked the X here on the lock and drilled a center hole for that. And then I've also marked with a marker here the opening that I need for the actual latching mechanism. So this is pretty much done. I need to obviously drill this out, clean this hole out. I'll take the striker plate off and everything off. And then I need to drill out the spot in here, if you can see that, for where the lock goes. But unfortunately, I have my stepper bit at the hanger, so I don't have what I need to finish it off. And then once I get that finished off and it's fitting good, I'll do my next step, which is going through, see if there's any voids in here. If there is, fill those in, finish filling in the voids around any of the windows, the door edges, finish that up. And then I need to put the reinforcement blocks in here. I'll put those in as well. And then this is pretty much ready. I still need to drill out, obviously I need to put the ends in here. I've got to drill out the holes to put the connecting rods in here for the door mechanism. But overall, it's pretty good. Getting very close to being able to finish this off. Unfortunately, like I say, I would have had this done, but I need to go get my my stepper bits. Otherwise, I just don't think it's going to be all that great. I could try it with a normal bit, but I just don't think that'll work out well. And these three here, the number 30s, according to the instructions, need to take the plate off, and then these need to be stepped up to a 1/4 inch hole And again, you know, could I drill it with a single bit? Probably. I just don't know if it'll be clean or not, but that's something I may try. Anyway, hope it helps. Cheers. Okay, so low profile door mods made. I used a stepper bit to step these holes up. This one here is round. You can't see it because of the plate on here, but it's 3/4 inch. I believe that's what it was called for. This one I stepped up till it got close. Then I used my Dremel with a little sander bit on it to get it close to the edge. And then I actually used my drill with a sand bit on it that's a little bigger so it fits in a hole nicely to start finishing off. And as you can see here, it fits in here nicely, right? So it should work pretty smooth. And if I need any fine sanding, I'll just do that with a bit of sandpaper, but that's it. So that's this side. So this is the co-pilot door. Now I'll go do the pilot side, and then I'll check for any final voids and put in the reinforcement for the center lock that I want to put on here, and go from there. Okay, so here I've got it done. The holes are drilled, blocks in nicely. This one, the other door came out better, but it's not bad. And when I put the other block in, I'll straighten it, but it's a little cockeyed, but not too bad. But anyway, that's it. And now what I'm doing is I'm trimming down these replacement blocks that go in to the door. Whoops. Like so. So the rear end one doesn't need to be trimmed down much, but the front one actually does. And you'll see I'm gonna have to match drill these, and when I do, this will be a way to straighten it a little bit if I need to. Anyway, yeah, so I need to cut a piece of this off and then grind it down to fit in there nicely. I still need to drill the hole in here, which this insert will go into ultimately. But for now, I need the right bit for it, and I don't have it. So here we have it. The blocks that are provided in the kit, I've replaced them, drilled a hole out to get them in there. I made it a little bigger just because I wanted to be able to move them around a little bit. But both doors now fitted with these. I still need to drill the holes through, but overall, pretty good fit. Probably need to clean up the edge. I'm not sure if it'll interfere, might not. But in case you're interested, one of the things I have done, again, I used my Scotch-Brite wheel to do initial cut down of these, but then I really used the Dremel tool. I have this one here. It's rechargeable. You just recharge it with a USB port. And I'll tell you, this thing works really, really well. I put a coarse bit on here. You could do something lighter if you wanted. Took it off pretty quick. But this, fantastic. I used it to trim up all of these. You can see here, and it worked really, really well. So that's it for this piece. Now I need to go and start running the rods through and make sure it all works fine, and go from there. And there it is, actually installed. Not tightened down yet. I think I'll probably take it off. I'm not sure yet. I may paint the inside of the door, which is quite likely actually. So nothing going to be permanent yet, but gives you a good idea. Like I said, a little cleanup to do, but overall, that's what it's going to look like. Well, I've got the door prepped for everything now, pretty much. I got all of it stripped off right now. You can see I'm in the process of sanding it all down, because I figure I'll do a primer coat on here to see how that works out. Maybe one, maybe two, but I'm also thinking what I will do is I'll end up painting it the blue color that I picked up. So that way, on the inside at least, I don't have to paint this. It'll be primed, it'll be painted. So I'm going through that right now. But a couple of things I've learned. Number one, when you're feeding in, some of the things they don't tell you is obviously you have to drill this hole. There's a pin that goes in here. That pin is really stiff. So I suggest that you get the pin out of the package and push it down through the hole a couple of times just to get that little pin on the end releasing. Otherwise, I doubt very much you're actually going to get it into the actual hole, right? But it's a little pin. It's not clear, but it's one of those safety pins. So here it is in the package. And let me see here if I can do this with one hand. Oh, maybe not, I'm not gonna bother. But if you can see it here, it's the ones with the holes in them. So you can put your safety wire in it. So you can pull it out. And down on the very bottom there, there's a little ball pin. Once it goes down the hole, that's on the other side, so it prevents it from coming up. And the safety wire prevents it from going down. But you can take it back out of the hole if you need to, and you probably need to do that a couple of times. So did that. The other thing is the lock mechanism. So what I did is, you can see here, I had to file down this metal bracket a little bit just to get the lock mechanism in here. And then what I did, which I can show you on this door, is this hole here for the lock is oversized. So the lock actually comes out through the hole like that. And then the beauty ring actually goes over all of it. And it makes it a much cleaner look. So that worked out pretty good. The other thing I found is, and it's doable, it doesn't actually say how to do this, but you're gonna have a rod with a rail on it. And so the rod with the rail on it will look kind of like this. I've just got it clipped on here for now. But you're gonna have to drop that whole thing down through this hole and guide it through this latching mechanism. It's not hard to do. You just kind of got to get the door position right. So that worked out. And then once you get that done, then like I said, basically what you're going to end up with is you've got this pin that goes in there. And that pin actually goes through a bracket that looks like this. And so that's what you've got to get the pin through. So like I said, work the pin before you do it. It makes it a lot easier. And other than that, these holes, I originally sized them for the size of the rail. But you know what? It's probably easier to just make them a square hole. This one here, because this bar has to go in, so what'll happen is you've got the other side of this rail on this bar, and you've got to squeeze that in through this hole so that you can get it lined up, which you might not be able to see here, but you can kind of see the rail here. You get it lined up through that hole, drop your pin through it, but you need it to fit through there, and it's not going to fit through there if you make them the squares. So I'll just square these out, make them just large holes and be done. And then what I also did is, once I had all these pieces drilled out, I got some epoxy and basically used my finger with a glove to just kind of smooth it in where if there were any groove, any spaces, any voids in here. So that's worked out pretty good. But right now, basically I'm at a point where I think I'm ready to just kind of prime it. I will actually put the permanent pins in here. There are a couple of pins that you can do. So for instance, on the front hinge here, and this is not the right block, I got the other block, but there's a pin that goes in here. It's one of the smaller pins. You put it in, you safety wire it, and then what you've got is that controls that mechanism, like so. And then the other one goes down through the bottom, which controls the gear that's here and the pin on the other side. What else can I think of? Again, Dremel tool. I used it for most everything. So to cut these out, I originally tried it with a drill bit. Not a lot of good stuff gets in there. So what I did is I used the Dremel tool and just kind of grooved it out. And then I used a file to kind of clean it up. But now I'll use the file to just enlarge it to make them square so they look uniform. This, nothing special. Obviously you've done that. And other than that, that's about it. And you can see here, one of the 4 holes, when I drilled it, I couldn't quite see it from the inside of the plane when I was drilling it. And so it ended up on an angle. So what I did is I filled it in. So now once I get this primed and everything, I'll put the bracket on here, put the bolts in these, and then just match drill that and dimple it on the top. That's it. Other than that, it's ready to go. And you know, basically the way it all gets assembled is you take this piece here, drop it in like so. This piece goes on top of it. And then you've got the handle. And once the handle goes in here, it controls the gear mechanism. So as you turn the handles, the gear move in and out. Pretty straightforward. The one thing that is interesting is the way the lock works is you'll see here, if I want to turn the gear, you see the little pin coming up. That's what allows it to move because it's down in a groove. The lock just holds a piece on top of that so it can't move. There is a modification you can make. It comes in the kit where you can extend one side of it, and that way it'll only lock in one direction. So when you got the door closed, you can lock it, but it doesn't lock otherwise. I didn't bother with it. The pin is a little longer, but I did a little quick test fit of the hinge, the lock mechanism. It seemed to work fine, so I'm not too worried about it. But that's it. So now it's clean them up, do some of the sanding, and prime them over. Working on the door handles, and as you can see here, I've got it started to be put together. You start off with the standard door handles. You had to shorten these per the spec. You put it back together like so. You're going to take this piece here and slide it on just as Vans did. So it's got that locking mechanism. You're then going to put the gear on here. And once you get the gear on here, then what you have to do is you have to put a pin down through the top here. This pin goes down through the gear, through the shaft, and somewhat out the bottom. For me, you know, there's little set screws on the gear to align the holes up. What I did is I can't put this on right now, but what I did is I put the gear on there. I dropped the pin down through it to make sure it was nicely aligned. And then I tightened the set screws. That way I knew the pin was going to be aligned. And then I slid this outer ring here over top of it like so. For me, at least, I had to go and polish this down. I used some sandpaper and just kind of sanded it down a little bit till I got it going over the top. It's a pretty snug fit, but got it over the top. And then once you get it over the top, drive the pin down through. That was a bit of a hassle. You want to make sure you're pushing, you're pushing in on the bottom as you're driving that pin down. Doesn't go in easy, but it's certainly secure. And then once it was in, I just kind of polished it down a bit. This snap ring here, I put on after I had the pin in and everything. It slid on nicely, and what it does is this is the new piece that you're going to use. Instead of the one that comes from Vans, you use this one, and it slides over top, and ultimately you'll bolt that on, and then that just lays in the door on the inside. And then of course the handles here in the package, that'll go on the outside. And what happens is when you lever the handle up, let me show you this here. So on the inside, if you want to open the door, you've got to press this. That disengages the lock mechanism. But on the outside, what will happen is once you put this in, like so, when you lever it out, you'll see on the back here it pushed the pin in and disengaged it, and that's how it works. So far, I got this one done. Now I'll go do the other one, same thing, and just slowly getting all the door mechanisms worked out. I have, I've already installed into the door. It's pretty hard to see, but in here I installed the blocks to give the little bit of reinforcement. It was pretty hard to do. And then I also used epoxy. You see this has got a chamfer to it, rounded. What I did is I put epoxy in there, used my gloved finger, and just kind of smeared it along the bottom to just get a good bond on it. And then once I put the block in here, I just pushed in more epoxy. The block, I don't know, I'm not sure it's going to do anything. It's good and sealed, secure on the bottom. I think what I'll probably do is turn the door over and put more epoxy in there with cotton flocks and just kind of make sure it's sealed on the top. Just need to be careful that you don't interfere with the lock mechanism. And then, the rest I've already showed. I still need to do some filling in some voids, but right now I want to get the mechanism working. Once the mechanism's working good, then I can just finish all the voids, and hopefully I'll be able to just bring it back down and start trying to fit it again.